Well, hello, and I gotta say, special day. We have a friend of ours who, and he'll tell you all about himself, is just the king of Gundams as far as we're concerned, correct?
Oh, yeah. I remember going, little red shirts we were at AI, which means we were ambassadors, Joe and I, together.
In college. We've known him since college.
And walked into his studio apartment, and I was like, holy shit, this is a lot of Gundams. And it grew from there, and I am in awe every time I look at them. Now that I've watched more anime and more shows, I recognize more, and it's...
Absolutely. So before we introduce him, today we're going to be talking about Gundam Thunderbolt, and apparently not only Gundam Thunderbolt in the sense of one movie, but two, which, again, let's just introduce him. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, hey guys. Nice to be here. Can't say how honored I am, honestly. This is
Absolutely.
Great.
What a gentleman. Also a podcaster. Would you like to plug away?
Yeah, we've got another one. It's called Why Are We Like This? And it's not up right now. We've been on a bit of a hiatus, but we're working on coming back through quarantine. Has been kind of working around.
Absolutely. This is the nudge to get back into it.
Exactly.
Findable on which platforms?
We used Podbean.
Okay,
yeah,
so you should probably be on Spotify.
Exactly. Spotify, Podcast Addict.
Lovely. So Gundam Thunderbolt, we're not huge into Gundam shows. Our favorite one is G Gundam, which is
by far, like, we can just say it here. Nobody come at us because you'll lose the fight.
Yeah.
G Gundam is the pinnacle of mech animes.
100%.
I'm so glad to hear that.
It is. Literally, when it comes to Gundam, the normal series is all like, let's be an intense political drama with robots so we can handle this to children and make it be like, war's bad. Or when G Gundam came around, they're like, let's put a robot in a sombrero and call it Tequila Gundam.
That's right.
Because we have little cultural appreciation for anything. Also, Neo Mexico is a giant sombrero in space.
Yeah, definitely right on the nose as far as not being too sensitive.
No.
But the show, the best character. Anyways, we could talk at length, and we will do an episode on G Gundam.
We will.
As a matter of fact, preparing for this and actually editing a previous episode where we mentioned Domon, I was looking up the scene, and this one gets goosebumps at that final scene.
Well, a little bit more than goosebumps, but we're trying to keep this rated mature.
Hey. Oh, we get it. I think everyone has that feeling.
I think that means butt bumps. Yeah? I don't know. I'm just a boy.
When Domon at the end is professing his love for Rain,
Finally.
It doesn't matter. I told Tom this morning, re-listening to it for the 13th time since last night, I was like, English, Japanese, I waited... How many episodes was that? 4? It was a lot.
Yeah, it was like a lot. 40.
You waited the last episode.
Actually, no, I think it's like 50.
Yeah, like that.
I remember. How many episodes does this show have, and how long am I going to have to wait? And oh my gosh.
But delivery, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
But going back to still good, just not the best.
In a different sense.
Gundam Thunderbolt. This is one that, frankly, the politics of Gundam, I get too confused, and that's why I'm also not.
Tom, you don't enjoy me force-feeding you guys Gundam Unicorn? That is about as dense as it gets sometimes.
But that was still very good. I do like Unicorn. But the politics and knowing this side is doing this, and this and I always throw in Federation, whatever. I just want to see Max fight.
Yep.
And that's just personal preference, you know.
Exactly.
But Thunderbolt handles it very well. I enjoyed it. There was times I'm a little confused of who's going on what. But what's very interesting about this one is you get a war with a main character from both sides. So not one is looking like the hero. You've got this just dynamic of I like both sides.
Exactly. You get a real duality for both sides of it, and the fact that it takes a nice slice because, like we were saying before, this timeline, anybody who doesn't know, there's multiple Gundam timelines. G Gundam happens in a beautiful spin-off series. There's Gundam Wings after Colony timeline. There's Gundam 00's timeline. There's the C timeline. Like, there's so many branches. Thunderbolt falls into the main timeline, which is the Universal Century.
Okay.
That is... starting in 0079 is how the year is done. And when you see other series like 0080, War in the Pocket, 0083, Stardust Memories, they're always referring to whatever year it's happening in.
Lovely.
This is why you're here.
The face is right now just like, wow.
My eyes glossed over, and I think I fell in love for a second. I don't know.
But it's really because absolutely the politics with Gundam are kind of a lot. And initially, it was very much like even with the original like Mobile Suit Gundam, because Danielle, when you looked up the details, that this takes place during the same events as that. The 1 year war is what happens between the Federation and Zeon, which are the space colonies, and they're like, hey, we want to be independent. We want to have our own thing. Earth is like,
Not today.
and we're like, oh, that sounds like a familiar conflict. Interesting. Then you get a lot of other mixed imagery with stuff. Like the Zeons very much look like space Germans, for a better term. Because you suddenly see like even some of their mechs have like German like helmets and stuff and a lot more rugged look. And then for the most part, you're like, yeah, Zeon, you want freedom. That makes sense. And then they drop one of these colonies, which have millions of people in them, onto Sydney, Australia, and nuke the planet with it. And that was bad. That wasn't very good.
Not good. And this occurs and this is occurring in what?
That occurs in Mobile Suit Gundam.
Okay,
so the original Grandpa series.
Which what I love is every time I show her and I say, this is an RX-78 Gundam, or this is the RX-78 too.
That's when my eyes gloss over, but not in a good way.
Right? She goes, so that's not Domo. And I go, no, not even close. This is the original. This is Papa.
This is it. Grandpa Gundam.
Whenever Tom shows me a Gundam, and I'm like, so this isn't Domo.
This isn't Domo.
Domo is the reference for everything.
It's basically the flow chart is beautiful.
Is it Domon?
No, don't care. Is it Domon? Yes. Awesome. It's just two quick branches. I love it.
It's the best flowchart. When it's what's good with this though is too with the as far as the timeline goes, because it does get very like, oh, there's a lot going on. This is a nice slice of the end of the war, and you don't get a lot of the outside politics of either side. You have a remnant force. They're called like the dead crew.
The living dead.
Yes, living dead for the Zeon that are just holding off this area. They are just there to die.
Which were the Zaku with the snipers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're just disposable. And then every unit with the Federation group, they're just a small detachment. Also, a lot of them very quickly are just fresh recruits that immediately die. So you don't have to have a lot of knowledge of the outside conflicts of this war. You just can come in here, understand two different ideologies clearly, and you get a good conflict between characters as opposed to politics and different sides.
Which I think they showed it in the show really well. I mean, you just explained everything so perfectly that I didn't know. And then I'm thinking how the show set it up. You see Io and Claudia, how she's running that force, and she's so conflicted because she's basically just sending these people to die. You see at the middle of the show all these young adolescent kids, and she's like, I'm just sending these people off to die. So you're feeling for that and you understand. And then you see Daryl has both of his legs missing. So, and you're already seeing some people have missing arms. And when he later in the show has to get his other arm amputated, you're just feeling like the government is just milking these people to get every last ounce of their life that they can use them for, and they're just basically guinea pigs.
Has to. It was an honor to have his second arm cut off.
Listen, he made himself think that much.
But no, quick contextual thing for anyone who, shame on you if you didn't, if you haven't seen this or you haven't heard us talk about it at this point. Thunderbolt is, we watched it in the way of where it's almost episodic but it's technically 2 movies, 4 episodes apiece, and they are 18 minutes.
Yeah, because it was released episodically, and then they compiled them kind of like they did with Evangelion.
Yeah. What was so great is we're like, oh, we got to watch this before Joe comes out, whatever. We sat down one night. It's just like watching a movie.
Easy.
Well, and in this case, 2. Rated R for anyone who's not of age. Well, then
go away.
Yeah, go away, I guess.
Or just watch it at night.
The death scenes in this, we'll go into it, but brutal. I loved it a lot. And as you said, it's almost this little just bubble in Gundam where you don't need reference points. You can just kind of take it for what it is. It's like a little war flick and jazz, baby.
Big jazz energy. I've never seen, like, especially with Gundam, where the music is as much a character. Like, there's definitely times I've seen, like, where music plays a big part, but the music really just embodies these characters. Io is batshit crazy.
Oh, yeah.
He is nuts and wild, and Daryl is more reserved in his stuff. And I'm like, I like Daryl's tunes.
Yeah, Daryl's tunes are
He's got the lo-fi, just chill. Like, I'm doing homework. Dead, snipe, dead. While Io's just like, what's up? Here's my nuts. Just, and like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to say it's nowhere near bebop's nice. Like, it's a little bit lesser quality of jazz, but nevertheless, the smoothest of smooth.
Yeah.
Enjoyed.
Well, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like when they were fighting, when he finally gets the Gundam and they have the Zaku, that when they're fighting, everything is kind of like vomit on the screen. Like, it's moving very fast, which is how Gundam fights are.
Yep.
You can tell kind of the placement of who you're watching, how the music changes.
Absolutely.
Which I thought was great, because you might not really be able to capture visually what you're seeing, but because they've already set up those sound cues, you get it.
100%.
Yeah. And plus to have, in Io's case, where he breaks that fourth wall with the music and tells the other side, when you hear this jazz music, I'm going to kill you.
It's me.
So it's this it's this beautiful music that's also intimidating in the same way, because then when you go to the perspective of these Zaku, I mean, heaven help them. I know you feel like you're on the right side of the war, but then they make you pilot a Zaku and you're like, ew, this is a very...
this thing doesn't run.
This thing sucks.
And especially in their case, given that they're just a second thought group, that they're like, here you go.
But I'll tell you what, in that opening fight sequence when we've got the Federation moving in on them, and suddenly the first bolt, because the cool thing with the show is you get this perspective of, oh, I'm watching this character, awesome, as, I had said, and you're just following him, and suddenly just a big blast annihilates him, and then you're like, well, we're not going to see him anymore. And you're jumping between these characters. It's chaotic. It's capturing the war. It's really good. I think right after I watched it, I was like, that was pretty good. But now as I'm looking back, I very, very much enjoyed it.
The battles are something that some of the other Gundam series maybe don't have as much. Is probably that it makes it feel like visceral.
Yeah.
Which is weird for robots in this case. The reason I really like this, and I think you guys would enjoy, I think our next one should be 8th MS Team, because that is another slice of the war, but instead of taking place in space like the majority of the conflict, this is on Earth with a group of pilots that are not special new types by any stretch. They're using like mass production Gundam suits, so they're just tanks. They're not, oh, I'm a really good pilot. They are just grunts that are on the front lines. Things are visceral. When you see machine gun blasts go through a cockpit, people get shredded. It happens in here. They are hosing out a person from a cockpit. And I'm like, that sort of imagery, I think, really plays to the strengths of Gundam when it does that. Because where it is like, oh, this is flashy, this is fun, and then you like take a step back, you're like, oh, there's a message here, and it's like it's not fun. But,
absolutely not. And I would like to take a step back to you talking about the mass-produced Gundam. So Gundam units, right? So we have all these different types. When I was saying Zaku, it's of course a robot,
mobile suit,
that is for a certain side. But what exactly and what is difference between in this movie, or well, both movies rather? You see these little grunts in the ship. He comes in with that. What is the first Gundam that Io has?
His is the full armor Gundam. It's like another prototype, which that's the thing too. All the main Gundams are always prototypes. Yeah. And
in this case,
crazy.
If 2 shields weren't doing it, how's about 4?
I told you before you watched this too. Gundam Thunderbolt it's Mobile Suit Gundam Jazz and shields. If you want shields, we've got them for you. Because
that's right.
You need defense? Here, just slap more. At one point, I don't think it ever was a Gundam. I think he just piloted a shield.
Yeah, several just floating around some type of a singularity. But those grunts sit and then they go, oh my God, it's a Gundam. So what is it?
The thing too, even to catch with that, is that it's not even that they say a Gundam, they say it's the Federation's white Gundam.
Okay.
And that's when, with the original series, the Gundam is such a step up in quality, because the Federation is really outgunned for the beginning of the war. Zeon developed the mobile suits first, and when Zaku's showed up, like even the shitty first ones, you can't stop them. Like they were able to drop any kind of military that the Federation threw at them. Main character Char, that's a character for another thing. See, it just starts rolling and rolling, where they could take out battleships in space with just a mobile suit. So the Federation was really getting fucked.
Yeah.
Pardon my French for this language for this episode, but
Great. Explicit.
Yep, there it is. Well, slap it. But they were getting just dominated, and their mobile suits, which you see at the beginning, they're GM models, very basic. They're not good, but they're not horrible. The Gundam is such a step forward, a massive jump forward in quality with its like materials, like what its strength, like its durability, and its weapons. And
clearly it's looks.
And its looks, yes. So with the Federation using the normal mobile suit, it's called like, the White Gundam. They know it as that. So the Zeon's forces have heard of this. To see that one is a big deal, and kind of an interesting thing too with, the Gundam. We see it all the time. We're like, wow, this thing everybody must know about. Some of these forces have never encountered the Gundam. Some of them just might not even know if it's real. So when they see that, not only are they like a disposable force, now the weapon they've heard about is here, and they are like, oh great, here we go.
That context is great because until a show like this now, Build Divers and stuff, where everyone knows what a Gundam
Everything's
is.
Yeah, exactly.
Which the overuse of the word gunpla, can't handle it.
Yep.
I'll eventually watch that show, but we've had Colin over here. Hi, Colin. We've had Colin over, and he'll be watching that show, and my gunpla, the gunpla.
I come in, I'll be in the kitchen. I'm like, I can't. If I hear gunpla one more time, another show.
I watched the first Gundam Build Fighters, so I haven't watched Try or Diver. So I've watched some of Try.
I think Try has the burning. Try burning.
Yeah, it's like the build burning thing. Yeah.
I will say these shows, the one thing they are doing is the Gundam models are getting better.
Oh yeah.
They're getting everything's going great, and the hobby seems to be getting even better. And actually, Joe showed up today. I'm airbrushing my first ever Gundam model, which is go ahead, Joe. I don't know what the hell it is.
You got one of the mass production Astray models from Seed. That's like the one series where I'm not as familiar with it. You caught me.
See, well, look at me being more of an expert by just owning the model. And that's about it.
What happens? I mentioned this to Tom and Danielle earlier too. Is when I got Tom building with me to start building model kits, he was like one of the first things. He's like, let's try dry brushing. Like, let's do some panel line, just do dry brushing. I'm like, I've never. What? you want me to put paint? And I was like, So I tried. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever for this. And then today I've been thinking, I'm like, I need to do an airbrush. Come over times like, oh yeah, check this out. I'm like, all right. It's gotta happen.
I'm in your head. And actually, no, I forgot. How charming is that? The only reason that I ever started building Gundams is Joe here.
I remember that first night you guys were up really late.
I think it was like 3 a.m. or something like that.
And I had to work because it was I came over on a Friday. We were up till 3 building. The pictures progressively of us falling apart.
The young crowd is like 3. What of it? No,
like,
listen, we're old. This is a big deal.
This is a big deal because we haven't had like a night like that in forever. And then I had to be to work at 7.
Oh, bless your heart.
The next day. And I just crashed on the couch, wake up a few hours later, I'm like, all right, bye.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And then I believe I chose, because it was the first, I think that was Shining Gundam. Was my first one.
Yep,
yeah.
It was your first one because not only did you you wanted to do panel line, but you dry brushed a bit on your very first one, which I was like, whoa.
Yeah, listen, I'm not here to...
He's not here to like mess around or even experience. Like, he's going hard.
Listen, it's a kit. I bought it for a substantial $16 amount.
Yep.
I'm going to put my life into it. Panel lining is still... That's where I think I'm going to get a little weird with this whole airbrushing thing, is you don't tend to panel line because you let the paint do the work. I'm going to miss it. So there's still going to be kits. A whole tangent, whatever, but...
Just wait till you have looked into like metal etching and adding those sort of details that aren't even there.
Well, and people are like cutting pieces into it. So what these gunpla are is they're just models of these big Gundam, Zaku's, and all that stuff. So if you've watched this and you enjoyed even just so much as not even the story, but if you like the look of these robots,
have fun.
And
go crazy.
Your dad has made you hate cars. You're not one of those guys.
You don't like to build planes or boats.
Yeah, you've resented those whole hobbies. Well, guess what? You don't even need to paint these. In some cases, yes, but that's getting into a whole different ballgame.
Exactly, yeah. For the most part, you are getting very well color coordinated kits that you minimal addition. You
cut
can just
and
cut.
snap together, no glue. Gundam Base, we're here for a sponsorship.
Yep, just come on, throw it at us. I will be here to help you ship so many episodes about Gundam and Gunpla that we'll get the sponsorship.
Hey, here it is. You will be seeing anytime Gundam, if it's not Joe, we'll tend to probably bring someone on. We do have a lineup with one of our very, very awesome listeners, Papa LaFlaga.
Shout out.
Shout out. Awesome Instagram, and I have to show you his as well,
Okay.
Joe. He will build the models, and then he'll put it in front of his computer screen to take a picture, and he'll put them in different sets.
We tried doing that.
We
a bit.
tried.
Yep.
But Papa did.
And,
Yeah.
and we got to give Papa more credit because he's the one who told us to watch this show.
It's true. This whole
Yep.
episode happened because
Shout
of him.
out to you too, Papa, because I hadn't watched Thunderbolt until Tom approached me with this, and I was like, all right, let's do it. I've been meaning to. Let's get it done. I had the Atlas Gundam. I had the full armor Gundam from the first part. Never watched it, but I was like, I like him.
Yeah, we had gotten through 4 episodes of Thunderbolt here, so the first movie, and I remember we started getting to the second part, and I was like, why am I suddenly, and before Atlas even showed up, I turned to her, I go, I think Atlas Gundam's in this. Joe has it.
Yep.
The Gundam's sick. And then he just cruises in. Oh my gosh. The moments, the pacing, the show, this was great. As far as Gundam goes, and I'm very picky,
yeah.
this was phenomenal.
I absolutely agree too, because there aren't what happens with a lot of the other ones, unfortunately. And when rewatching Unicorn with you guys, it suddenly became very apparent that how much time is spent just like in deep thought. Here's a monologue for a moment, and I'm like, oh, guys, come on.
Yeah.
And Thunderbolt doesn't get caught up in that.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to have everybody stop and talk and tell you every bit of piece of like their feelings. Thunderbolt just shows it to you. You understand all these characters as soon as they are on screen. And even with how they pilot, Io is just as sporadic in his Gundam as he is as a person.
Yep.
And that's what's interesting about this too, is they kind of switched up the dynamic that they'll do with most characters, mostly with Gundam. And once you know it, you'll probably you can't really unsee it, as there's always your main pro tag in the Gundam, and then you've got your main bad guy who wears a mask. And happens with the main series of Amuro and Char. It happens in Gundam Wing. It happens in Seed. There's always a masked character and your pro tag character. And pro tag character is always a crazy fast unit that is outpacing everything that the good guys can throw at them. And your main protagonist pilot is like, oh, I'm a new type. I have powers I'm developing, and I can try to match this. This one completely flips that. Io is not special.
Yeah.
His unit gets destroyed as soon as he comes into the fray. And then he like pops out and pulls a little like quick ejection maneuver, but he is sporadic and crazy. He is shooting all over the place and wiping out a lot of these Zeons, whereas Daryl is more reserved and feels exactly like a normal Gundam protagonist, who then gets a suit, like a unit that enhances his powers like the normal protagonist would. And I really liked that shift.
And Daryl is I think it's his just calm collectiveness that it does pair so good against Io that you almost kind of prefer Daryl at first.
Oh.
But
Io grew on me.
You do want like dope fight moments, it's going to be Io.
Yep.
As far as favorite sequences, I loved even just right from the get-go. You see his character asking Cornelius for a tissue constantly. It becomes almost a little meme. It's very funny.
I love that that's vicious.
Cornelius, tissue.
Right?
And I think what I love about when they set up the show, you see Io, and you're automatically supposed to assume, at least from my perspective, not watching a lot of Gundam, that he's who you're supposed to root for. And then you see Daryl, and you've already seen like a lot of that, I'm going to loosely say propaganda, the way they're dressed, like their uniforms. We've said kind of Russian-like. It's like, oh, bad.
Yep.
But then you start seeing Daryl and kind of the flashbacks that he has of his life and all the other characters and what they're fighting for. And that's what I loved about the show is you didn't really know who you wanted to fight for.
Yeah.
And so you could cheer for both and then getting these awesome battles. And it kind of ends up being conflicting because you don't know what side should win.
You cheer for both, but then you also then realize, no, I'm not for either of these. War sucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it should be, honestly.
Exactly. I was gonna say what's good with that too is even when they fight, Io even explicitly says, "Why can't I beat you?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's he call him? He calls him crippled, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he's like
or
crippled.
like
He's
peg
why?
leg.
Yeah,
and things like
why
that.
can't I beat you? And which is good too because you're sitting there thinking, you're like, oh, I don't know who I want to win. Like honestly, in the fight, I'm like, I think I want Io to win, but the harder that Daryl fights and the more he sacrifices, literally gives his body to become a better pilot when he's like, I lost both my legs and my arms to pilot this Psycho Zaku. And you're just like, ooh, man.
Yeah.
So I was like really expecting like, okay, well, Daryl's dead at the end of this. I know how this happens. And then they both make it.
Yeah, which is
They both,
good.
yeah. And then season 2 happens and I'm like, oh, they're still here. Okay. And again, I think that's where it expands it even further, where now they're in the post-war situation with season 2, and the conflicts are a lot more isolated now. So there's not even a big conflict. There's supposed to be like a de-escalation and a ceasefire happening, and there are still kind of little mini fires happening that they're involved in. So now you're not even worried about what side they're on. You're worried about the characters, and that's where it gets even harder to like decide, oh, I think I like them.
Well, and it's funny with this show is that, or movie, I don't know, whatever you'd call it.
You say show. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it started as episodes.
Yeah, it's
Series. How about
This
there?
series, there we are. This is so good at just putting, and you know, you've had Saving Private Ryan that puts this human aspect into war. This did it insanely good.
Oh, yeah.
Even the higher ups, you see all the stress put on them because, oh, she's just ordering these young people, and you see her mind deteriorate. And she almost goes insane because now it's starting to hit her exactly what she's been
I
doing.
wouldn't even say she almost. She absolutely goes.
She does. Yeah, she. True. What am I talking about?
She's part. Remember, the next time we see Claudia, she's part of a cult.
Which so when granted people we're gonna have spoilers. So
Whoops, spoiler.
Yeah. Whoops. So the first part, the first 4 episodes, their ship is being attacked and she's sucked out into space. I said, that bitch ain't dead. She's gonna come back. And then when she did come, I said something to Tom. He's like, no, she was sucked into space. She's dead. I said, the trope in anime, if you do not see them die, they are not dead. You cannot count them out. And then she was in the ship.
That's a fair point because even I was like,
And-
gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
Well, and
Absolutely.
especially in this, because this one's not afraid to show. people
Exactly.
dying.
Yeah. But I had a feeling, and I was like, if we don't see her, I said either Io is going to find her body and do some like mental thing, seeing her in space, or she's going to be living. I said either of those have to happen because of their relationship with each other.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
the fact that she came back, and it's so heartbreaking that the show is kind of on this like, it doesn't end when you
Yeah,
finish
you-
watching
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we're left at a cliffhanger by the end of season 2, and I'm like,
Which is a good thing to mention that if you have not watched it, go into it knowing that you will basically, a big cake will come out, you're going to enjoy eating it, and when you go, I would like a second piece, they're like, sure, here you go.
and guess what?
But-
Turns out you weren't even eating cake. You had pie the entire
You
time.
had pie the whole time, and on top of that, you're not getting a third slice until we tell you can. This was really good, and I'd like to even step in and talk about some of like our favorite scenes or whatever. It doesn't take much time, and I believe it's episode 1. When Io attacks these snipers, when he goes back for round 2, when he goes back for seconds, and he is flying around and whatever, and he gets to this particular sniper, he breaks into this guy's unit. And then you are just watching now from his squad mate's perspective as someone comes in and just boom, shoots this guy.
Yeah, because it's right after his mobile suit gets destroyed,
Yep.
and he ejected with his little like core fighter,
That's
and just
it.
showed up.
Showed up, and then so yeah, he wasn't even in his Gundam at this point, and he just shows up, gets into this guy Zaku, blows his face off right in front of his squadron, and you're like, What in the world?
And it's not like, oh, he gets shot off screen, you just see him. It is shot to the, like, it shows you close up on his face as the cockpit opens and then just red against that visor.
Yep. And then picks him up and throws him out. This is war to the T.
And here's rated R, people.
Yes, this is where it's rated R.
Yep.
The thing with it, too, is you not only get this gruesome thing, but then you also, as we'd mentioned earlier, you get that awesome line where this guy goes, I'm going to find you. He goes, listen, man, I will find you. You're going to hear jazz and you're going to be dead. Oh my gosh.
And what's even better too is then he absolutely delivers on it, because as soon as he gets the Gundam and like launches, it is boom, 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 boom. I've got a big laser cannon. I've got these cannons. And he just shreds them.
Shred is the only word for it.
Yeah.
Which terrifying. I wrote it, in my notes. I wrote it in my notebook when I read it and I wanted to talk about it, but I think it's when he gets the Gundam and you get this 1 point perspective of when one of the side characters in one of the Zaku's, you're like in his first point perspective when he's being attacked, and that was terrifying.
Oh, where he just zooms.
So you are
because
this guy.
he's shooting at him, missing everything, and then it's just like point blank.
I should have the name, of course, on deck and notes, but I don't. The director of this, incredible. To switch over to that first person where you're getting attacked and you can feel how terrifying and how powerful this new Gundam is.
Yep.
Awesome. I forgot about that until you said it.
Yeah.
How did I forget?
There's so many. It's because there's so many good scenes.
So true.
There's so many you
and
can
everything
always pick
happens
out.
so quick. If you don't write it down, so much stuff happens.
Well, we're watching
I feel.
subtitles.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool. Let me write these down. Wait, I'm gonna miss. So don't take notes, guys.
Yep. Just
watch it.
Just embrace it.
Luckily, it's short enough. We can just watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you can just pick that one episode that you like and just watch that. The first Gundam is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But the Atlas Gundam,
Atlas
come
Gundam,
on.
From a design aspect, it's completely different looking. It's very like round and it's amphibious, which is different.
Yeah.
Very different.
When he went under and he goes, this is amphibious too, I was like, oh, no kidding. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
But to have the accessories, because there's always accessories with these Gundams. You've got your launchers, your shields.
I'll tell you right now, with that kit, one of those cool little like jet, like
The
his jet
ski-looking
skis,
things,
yeah,
yeah.
those things kind of a pain in the ass
Sure.
to like put in a good spot. Like the pictures you see of the kit, you're like, oh, that's awesome, it's beautiful. Then you get it and you're like, I got to turn it just a little bit, but once you find the pose, it's beautiful, it's perfect, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I need to consult with. You want someone to pose your Gundam models. Joe here, I cannot do it like he does.
We
Whenever
baby it too much. We're like,
we
oh,
do.
it's gonna break.
He just goes, move along,
And me-
slaps my hands and just poses
And
it
me, it's like
perfectly.
it's not. It's like it looks forceful or like kind of aggressive, but it's also very delicate and beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I try, like because you said you're like the one time I remember Daniel just watching him do this is like art.
It's essentially,
which I was like, oh,
I would borderline say you have your doctorate. You are a surgeon with Gundams. Like, it's so meticulous, but I've got this, and oh my gosh, forgive me, fans. I should know all my names, but that is the Strike Freedom I have out there, correct? From Seed.
yep, it might be. I think it's Seed Destiny actually.
Okay.
The second one.
The word Seed was in there.
Yeah,
Forget it.
yeah. It's like,
Yell at your
somebody yell at it.
Spotify
Like,
playlist.
We'll just
I
say
don't
here,
know.
you know what? We'll probably spend a whole nother episode watching Seed, which I think we should.
We probably should.
Because, and we're not going to watch the entire series. We're gonna do it the easier way, and someone's probably like, that's not right at all. I'm sorry, but the best way to consume Gundam Seed is by watching it in its movie compilation form that cuts out 90% of the young adult, like YA, teeny mopey bullshit.
Oh, okay.
That is my biggest gripe with Seed. It's about to take a weird little tangent, everybody.
Sure.
But when I watched it, I was like, I really wanted to finally give it its due diligence. And I'm like, as soon as it was just that, I'm like, I can't stand this.
Yeah.
And I watched the movie compilation. It cuts through a lot of that. Still makes these I liked the characters suddenly. And it makes them a lot more enjoyable. It gets you to the fights, not again to be like, oh, what flashy. But it gets you that while still maintaining the characters. It also highlights that there is a much, much better character story in Seed that is not front and center, and is also why I was not a fan of it. Instead of focusing on these teeny boppers, there are two main characters that one is like a mobile armor pilot, one is the captain of their ship. their relationship, their former relationship that keeps having tension, and our classic trope of the masked villain, his relationship with that mobile armor pilot. That is a story, and there is bits of it there, and what you get, you're like, that's so cool. I love them.
Yeah.
I want more of that, but you don't get more of that.
Ah, dang it.
You didn't even get pie.
What?
I'll tell you what you
got.
got. You got burnt toast.
Well, and that's the thing with burnt toast. Yeah, let's go have breakfast.
Yep.
The thing with Gundam, and I think as a fandom, the passion is there, and that's great. But there also needs to be a realization that not everything is black and white. And in this case,
Yes,
that
absolutely.
being one super hyper political, every ounce has been thought out. And I like a fleshed out universe. That's great. And then you've got the other end of it that is Shia LaBeouf in Transformers, where look at this explosion.
Yes.
Don't worry about what's going on. Look at
Exactly.
the explosion, blah, blah, blah. There's this nice middle ground. And I think that's where I'm at with Gundam
Yes.
is I am totally fine to hear about all this, the melodrama and all that stuff. But if that's all it is, I will just go watch Downton Abbey.
Exactly.
I'm not here. Oh, the daggers.
You're gonna watch it eventually.
Listen, I like the show. It's fine. I've got a.
We're
you know.
definitely, after this, 8th MS team and 0080 War in the Pocket. Those are, so 8th MS team takes place during the 1 year war and kind of towards the end of it. So basically, while Thunderbolt's happening, this is happening back on Earth.
Gotcha.
0080 is the year afterwards. The war is supposed to be over, and it's following like on a colony with a small child who's like, oh yeah, like him and this kid, it's basically the innocence of a child viewing this war from like it's been going on basically his entire life.
Gotcha.
And him having to like a mobile suit encounter happens, Zeon troops show up on their colony and get shot down. He finds the pilot of one of those suits, is like, whoa, who are you? And he's like, well, I'm a Zeon kid. He's like, well, I mean, I like you. You know, Zeon can't be that bad. And that's you start to get this very interesting, like this kid gets to see both sides of it. And
Danielle's invested.
I'm telling you, it's fantastic. Probably one of the most depressing endings I've ever seen in a series.
Okay,
too.
so
But and
another
it's only
episode of-
5 episodes.
Oh.
Very short.
Now, are we talking 5 unicorn episodes? Are we talking 5
No,
Thunderbolt?
Exactly. 5 Thunderbolt episodes. Yeah.
Okay.
They're obviously 18 to 20
Totally
minutes.
fine with that.
Absolutely. That's like 8th MS team is going to be more of a full season.
Sure.
But War in the Pocket might be a good one to go with next because it's still a nice slice. And then we can jump into 8th MS team.
Well, as of today, before you got here, we actually already added. So we've already had an episode about things that have made Danielle cry from anime.
Episodes that have made me cry. Yeah.
Okay.
And we just added one with Villainous,
Yeah.
which that's a whole different. We'll talk about that. So perfect. We'll watch that.
Yep.
Add another to the list. Look at me just feeding it.
if you
Cry,
want-
Danielle, cry.
Oh, you want the thing that we'll have to do another episode on, obviously, is the mech show that you got me into, Tom. Because me being like a big mechs, you come over and you're like, have you seen Darling in the Franks?
Which I'm wearing.
Which
the
you are
shirt.
wearing, and I love it. Number
good.
2 is Best Girl.
Yeah, that's right.
Just accept it. Her and Asuka. It's red. It's something
It's
with reds.
too, yeah, it is.
Easy. Easy peasy. And Evangelion. I'm already planning episodes for you guys.
And-
I hope you know.
There you go.
And the Tsundere, Tsundere.
There you go. And the thing is, what you bring up, I got you into Drawing the Franks. What's so funny is the reason Joe is on this episode, I'm going to talk like he's not here. I do this with the guests. He got me into the Gundam stuff, and he got me into, like, that's why I see, okay, well, here's why he's the perfect guest for this. Now, another one I think you'll be a good guest for is another one that I can't even hear the name of the show without thinking of you, Gurren Lagann.
Oh, my boy.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And such a fun show. I can't believe we haven't finished it. It's just because we are in this mental state of watch as much as possible. We're going to finish it.
Oh,
and that's
I get it. I completely get it. Absolutely. Well, Gurren Lagann also, or apologize if anybody for pronouncing it wrong. You get the Gurren Lagann or Gurren Lagann. Gurren Lagann. However you're going to pronounce it. That's a hefty show because you get 2 very sizable halves to a show. With an entire story, and after you finish the first half, hey, you're exhausted. You've been on quite the journey, and guess what? You're only halfway there. So
halfway there.
I completely get it. Yeah, we got to do it. Darwin and the Franks.
Yes.
Evangelion.
Yep.
Gurren Lagann.
Oh,
more
my gosh.
Gundam. Just buckle up, guys.
This is going to turn into a mech show,
Yeah.
which I'm fine with.
Which it just becomes. So we made it a mech show.
Yes. I married a cross-out Weeb mech enthusiast. I'm a bit of a mech enthusiast. Unbelievable.
They call me pilot.
I start showing up with sunglasses all the time. Daniel, tissue. But yeah, so Thunderbolt, even if you're not into Gundam,
Absolutely.
I've just proved it. It's great.
Yes, I think even if all you know is what is the name Gundam, you haven't watched it because you don't know where to start, which I do not blame you. Danielle was even saying, she's like, I didn't know where to look to find stuff, and it's a lot. It's scattered. The analogy I made was, if you were to go onto Wikipedia, the Star Wars wiki, you can just get lost in that and not know where you remember where you started. But you have the context of the movies. Gundam, if you didn't watch anything and you find that wiki, you're going to be having the most insane time with words and terminology that does not make sense. Which, speaking of terminology, the Psycho
frames.
the Psycho Gundam. So it's Psychamu, which Psycho Communicator or Psychic Communicator.
Thank you. You're welcome, listeners.
The fact that Daryl has to like cut off his limbs so he can like unite with the Zaku to do this, it was depressing too, because within a couple years from there, Zeon makes an even better one where you don't have to cut off anything. You literally just sit in your, because what you saw in Unicorn was the full version of a Psycho frame where the entire Gundam is controlled through the thoughts at that point. Before that was the Psycho frame just around the cockpit where you can control funnels.
Gotcha.
And that's not that far away from where Daryl's situation happened. So he's right at the cusp, and I can only imagine he's like, oh, I gave my body to become one with the machine. Yeah. And some other pilot shows up, I put on a little headset, and I control these gun things. Yeah. It's cool. It's fine.
Yeah. Now, side question. In the second part, last 4 episodes, there's the character on Daryl's team. He's got like the longer blonde hair, and he gets like the electric, and he's like, something's coming. Yep. And they keep throwing around like new type.
New types.
Are they like psychic or?
Yes. So what a new type is when humanity, it started off as a theory, and this is basically kind of the entire back plot of Unicorn is kind of delving more into that as well. Is when humanity went into space, the biggest concern was like, oh, humanity is so spread out now, literally over light years from each other. How do you maintain connections? And the thought was that humanity would evolve, and there would be these new types of people, subtle, that would be able to connect with each other, that humanity would be connected over any distance. And what happened with that is that like people were like, oh, that is complete and absolute nonsense. That's a conspiracy theory. There's no way it happens. Plot twist, it happens.
Yeah.
And Amuro from the main series is a new type. Char, his main, antagonist, is a new type. It gives you aspects of foresight. Like that's when they can sense like something's coming, something's happening. You can communicate, like reach out to people in some aspects too. There's been characters that have died in other series that have been able to send their consciousness out to like contact somebody right at the end. There's been people like with certain mechs that have basically taken on a life of their own because somebody's essence as a new type with that system basically became a ghost in the shell. So new types, it makes them better in just about every way, but that's also kind of what made it less black and white when it came to characters.
Sure.
Because not only can they sense these things, but you can suddenly sense other people's emotions. It's easier for them to kind of relate to people or understand them. And that's what makes, at least with the original series, Char and Amuro's ideologies so aggressive, is because they understand each other in better ways, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to change my mind. It's no, why don't you understand me? And to the point too where there's genetic experiments on many pilots to become cyber new types. And I think that's what that pilot is. Because he's like, I'm not a real new type. I think he was an experiment.
Sure.
So he is a new type, but it wasn't natural. It was through other means. And cyber new types, there's plenty of those that are like, oh, they're either really good, but a pure new type is probably going to be better. But that's exactly what flashes of those are.
Okay.
And that's what's so funny in science fiction shows like this too. I love when we have a pilot who has cut off his limbs are gone. He's able to connect with the robot, and it's this advanced technology. And he's in a robot flying through. Mobile suit, flying through space, doing all this stuff, and then. Well, maybe we'll eventually be able to communicate through our minds. Absolutely not. What's wrong with you? I'll be right back. I'm going in my hyperspeed mobile suit. Come on.
Look, I just plug in my little stubs and I'm fine. Don't worry. It's absurd.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
did you really quick too?
let's hear it.
Do you guys know where the term Gundam comes from?
I think I've heard it before, but I don't want to embarrass myself, so I'm going to say absolutely not.
So I randomly looked this up like a couple years ago because I was like, this seems so random. And the creator chose that name because the idea behind what a Gundam would represent is that they wanted to have a vehicle that could hold back waves of enemies like a dam and hold a giant gun. It's Gundam.
I, in my head, literally thought to myself, oh, because it's a big thing. It's like a...
Yeah.
Wow.
That's exactly what
Okay.
it's supposed to be, a force that can hold back waves and waves of enemies and be that sort of beacon. You also notice that it's very human-esque compared to a lot of the mass production units. It took me years, so many years, to realize that little top part where they have
like a samurai helmet.
It's not even that samurai, it's a top knot.
Oh, yeah.
If you look like how it goes back, it's very visible with like Burning Gundam especially.
Sure, yeah.
But it's like a top knot.
So cool.
Wow.
And just overall, just a lot of little details here and there.
The Gundam series has the details. There's no doubt about it, except for G Gundam. Not too many details in
I'll
that
tell you one detail. There is a Gundam with a spiked crotch, and that's a detail we can all get behind.
You're darn right. And I'll be probably purchasing that online after this. I go in. It's already in the cart. Danielle, what's this about?
It's already on the front step.
Yeah, exactly. Joe, can't thank you enough. Honestly, we would not have been able to handle something as gargantuan as Gundam in general, but also
course.
Thunderbolt.
Of course. It was a pleasure being here. I cannot wait to be on these again. I'll probably never be on these ever again. They'll be like, that was it. Get him out of here.
He's too good. Get him out.
Get him out of here.
But
But I can't wait to do this again with you guys.
Absolutely.
I love getting to talk this stuff. I love getting to see you guys, obviously.
of course.
So if it adds to the quality of this, of course.
Of course. And yes, he will be on more. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you checked it out. And if you didn't, the love that just happened by three friends in this closet talking about it, come on. This passion has to fuel you to watch. It's 18-minute episodes.
Look into your soul. Let us reach out to you across the cosmos with our new type powers. Look, the East is burning red, everyone.
God.
Joe, I don't want things to get weird in this
I'm
closet.
already
please.
sweating in this closet. Don't bring those lines out.
I can't wait to do a G Gundam episode.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you right now, I'm so there's so much there. So
It's
much there.
perfect. You guys will be seeing more of Joe. That's no doubt. He can act like we're going to kick him off. No, you will be seeing more of Joe, and you will be seeing more of us. Guys, thanks for listening to the I Married a Weeb podcast. Danielle, I am done. Joe, I'm going to tell him he's done. Please, for me, for Joe, tell the people goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye, everybody. This has been 0079 GDM, the universal radio for your people.